the Bengals, we just watched them get demolished on Monday Night
Yeah.
Football offensively. And my upset is not specifically because I only needed 6 points from Jamar Chase to win my big money fantasy league and didn't get it, but I'm sure that other people have taken notice as well. Jake Browning looks nothing like the player that we saw in 2023, and I don't know if that's offensive. I mean, I think a lot of this. I think
don't you think part of that is like that they have a book on him?
part of it's that they have a book. I think part of it that not a lot of people are talking about is that when Joe Burrow is playing, Joe Burrow is the offensive coordinator. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
Joe Burrow is Peyton Manning in that regard. I'm not comparing him to Peyton Manning, but Joe Burrow is controlling a lot of what he sees. He's controlling the input into what's going
Joe
into
Burrow is
the
an
call sheet.
incredibly advanced quarterback who
He's a
plays
very advanced
quarterback in the
quarterback.
way that people played quarterback 25 years ago, which is increasingly rare. I
So
think
when you remove that from the plug, and then you say, okay, Zach Taylor and Bengals offensive staff now make it work, it looks a little different. And I think that Browning was probably able to catch lightning in a pan. It was a decent stretch. I think it was 7 games
There
where
was
he
7
had
games. I think they were 4-3. Let me look that up.
4-3 and an
4-3.
above 70% completion rate. But
Right.
now it looks nothing like that.
So can I make the case for trading for Kirk Cousins?
Yeah. I mean, I think that makes the most sense, doesn't it?
I mean, I think for one thing, like what you're talking about, knowledge of the offense, the ability to control things if you want to replace that. Where Kirk Cousins' formative years as a starter, who his coordinator was, right? It was Sean McVay, who is one of Zach Taylor's mentors.
Right.
So, like, I think having, having somebody who has at least some background in your offense would help. Having somebody who's used to having a lot of control and runs the offense by the book, because that's always been Kirk's rep has been like he will, like, that's why Kyle Shanahan loves him. It's like the coach has the joystick, you know what I mean? Like, and he will run your offense the way you want your offense run. So he's got that piece of it. Here's the other thing. All right. I came up covering, like, as a Patriots beat writer in 05, 06, when I first started covering the league. It was at the height of the Brady Manning rivalry. And I remember it felt like those two would go at it forever, right?
Yeah.
And these franchises would be gold standards forever. And then we saw the Colts get lucky and Manning gets hurt in the right year and they wind up with luck and it extends a little bit. And then we saw what it looked like post Andrew Luck, right? And we've seen now what it looks like for the Patriots post Tom Brady and how hard it's been for them to drag themselves up off the mat and what a mess they've been, 4-13, 2 years in a row. And it's really convinced me that when you have a quarterback like that, and I think there are 4 of them in the NFL right now, right? I think it's Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, and Jackson. Every chance that you have to enter the tournament with one of those guys at quarterback is gold and needs to be respected and needs to be invested in. And so if I have an opportunity to enter the tournament with Joe Burrow as my starting quarterback, I am treating that like gold. And how do you treat that like gold? You give yourself the best chance to get in while he's not in the lineup. And to me, that makes the investment in a guy like Kirk Cousins would make it 100% worth it. And so if I'm the Bengals, I'm making that phone call to the Falcons and I'm saying, what can we do to make this happen? And I know it might seem like a lot, like the money you would pay. And I don't know. I think what's his base salary this year? It's like 20. Let me pull it up. Cause I had this like committed to memory in the offseason.
Because every other week it's like, hey, is this team going to trade for Kirk Cousins? Is this going to?
Yeah, maybe I'm blocking it out because I was like a kick pup. All right. So his base salary is 27.5. So at this point, well, let's say they trade for him in 2 weeks. Okay. So that would be 6 weeks in. So you're talking about like now, and hang on one second here. So we would be talking at that point about, and I'm dividing 27.5 by 18 right here live, which is great podcasting, as you know. So you
Actually,
have
that
12
is
weeks
great
of the season.
podcasting because I can't divide.
So you'd be talking about an $18 million investment. Okay. An $18 million investment. And maybe in this case, you get whatever, 6 or 7 starts out of him. It's worth it. It's worth it because you have a quarterback like that. Those are very hard to come by. And you're making an $18 million investment in what could be a run at the Super Bowl when the rest of the AFC, quite frankly, looks relatively vulnerable, right? The Broncos haven't quite lived up to expectations. Now I think they look better on Monday. The Chargers now are down both their starting tackles. I think the Chiefs are going to be just fine, but they've looked vulnerable early on. The Bills, I think, are the best team in the conference, but they scuffled a little bit. The Ravens obviously have looked vulnerable. Like, if I'm the Bengals, I look at this and I say, how do we get to December 14th?
Yes.
And that game against the Ravens at 7-6.
Yeah.
Can we get there? And I'm doing everything I can to get there. Because if I can get there at 7-6, that will mean that I've developed different parts of my team. I've become more well-rounded. And now I'm inserting Joe Burrow back into the lineup. And then what? Now you have a chance to get hot at the end of December. I don't know. I think, like, if you're at the point now where you think Jake Browning is not going to be good enough and it's going to land you at 3-6 when he comes back, or at, that's bad math, at whatever, 3 and it'd be 3-10 or 4-9, and you're out of it altogether. Like, if you think Jake Browning is going to do that to you, then you owe it to yourself to try and find a better answer at the position, because, again, the opportunity to have a quarterback like that going into January should be treated like gold.
You're already all in, right? I mean,
yeah.
You did the deal, and I hate to, and I'm sure that Mike Brown is rolling his eyes when he listens to this, because I know Mike Brown is a huge MMQB pod listener.
Yep, no question.
Big time, and everybody is, all the insiders.
Yep.
But I get it, right? It's like I paid T. Higgins, I paid Jamar Chase, I paid Trey Hendrickson. We got the deal done with Shamar Stewart. Leave me alone. And while I never side with an owner, I do get the idea that he probably feels like he has done everything he can at this point. My hope is that what you don't do is Russell Wilson, right? Because Russell Wilson is theoretically the other guy in this conversation, right? Russell Wilson, you only owe him $1.5 million for the end of the year. That is a more financially feasible option, but we've seen already Jake Browning just chuck it to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and I think that's at best kind of what you're going to get. I don't think that Russell Wilson is a market improvement over Jake Browning in that offense specifically right now. I don't know if that makes sense.
I agree,
but I do think that Kirk Cousins, I think we're fading him, man. I really do. Like,
you're gonna get a motivated Kirk Cousins, right?
And it's not gonna look like it drives me so crazy, because it's not gonna look like it did last year in Atlanta, because Kirk wasn't healthy and that offense was not adjusted to suit where he was at in his recovery. It just wasn't. It was like, hey, you're gonna have to do all this stuff in the backfield, and Kirk Cousins is on 1.5 Achilles. And so that it looked a lot worse.
He couldn't drive the ball last year
than what it was.
He couldn't drive the ball last year.
And he still had like a 5 touchdown game or whatever it was,
I mean, I just think, like, again, like, I think you get a motivated version of Kirk Cousins. I think you get, a guy who's going to be good for the room, so to speak, and good for Joe Burrow then to have that resource at the end of the year would be.
I was thinking that too. I think that's super valuable.
You know what I mean? Like, so, like, to have him as that resource when he gets back would be valuable. It also, like, if you feel like you're close with him, like, it could give you like the ability to sit Joe for an extra week if Kirk is playing well. You know what I mean? Like, it's valuable. It's just, again, like you said, you're all in. You did the deal with Trey Hendrickson. You've invested in the receivers. You've invested in the offensive line, even though it hasn't played out the way you would have liked it to. There's just so many things to me that I look at with the Bengals where I'm like, I think Kirk could probably stabilize and fix this a little bit and put them in a position where they're competing for the next 2 months. And, you know, then when Joe gets close, you have a little bit more flexibility to be careful with him. And when Joe gets back, you have a resource in the room for him that's really good. And you'd hope at least that you have, like a group that's developed again, because if you're going to win without him, you're going to have to develop different strengths. Maybe it's Chase Brown in the run game. Maybe it's Al Golden and what he's doing defensively to make it work in a little bit of a different environment. Like I just think that there is a path here to competing and to competing at the highest level. And by the way, like, all those questions about like, is Joe pissed off about like the fact that this or that isn't working around him? Like, Joe's deeply invested in that franchise and deeply invested in being part of being the change agent for that franchise. Like, I've talked to him about this before, and I think, he would really appreciate, and there'd be good value for you on a personal level with Joe in doing something like this to preserve a year of his career and give value to a year of his career that otherwise would be lost.
And for people clamoring that, backup quarterbacks, it is what it is. It's a sunk cost. I ran into this tidbit, and there's no other place to put it but here. So when I was reporting out the legal sign stealing thing last week, someone said that backup quarterbacks are a big part of this, that they help in the prep for, and they notice a lot of this stuff because that's part of their job, right? Is to see what other teams are doing. And Kirk is one of those heady players. And I didn't confirm this with Kirk specifically, but someone said like, hey, do you know why Gardner Minshew always gets signed really quickly and always goes to teams? And it was like, why? And it's because he was an old air raid guy. So he's used to getting to the line, looking over at the defensive backs and taking a screenshot of their signals mentally and processing them. And he knows what the defense is doing. He knows what's coming. And so I think that Kirk, like, there's tremendously valuable things that we just we can't even fathom, is my point, with a backup quarterback, right? And so that's why I think you put Kirk Cousins and Joe Burrow together and you give Joe like essentially like a third offensive coordinator. Holy shit. You really got something.
By the way, sorry for being distracted there. The Chiron on First Take right now is, will Shedeur Sanders see the field this season? With in little letters underneath, Browns benching Joe Flacco to start Dylan Gabriel. I just sent it to you.
We're just a parody of ourselves at this point,
I mean, that was great. I had to tweet that out too. I said it took 30 seconds. Like, it was
like,
just,
sports media is dying. Why? Look at that.